Hey everyone, it is Matt Radford here again on the Roofr Spotlight, and today we have our very own Chuck Allen, a good friend and friend of Roofr. He is with Riop Blanco Roofing and also the host of the Keeping It Rio podcast, which I was on. What was it, last year, Chuck?
It was
Was it
last
this
year. Yes.
Was
You
it,
need to
was
come
it?
back for a return appearance, my friend.
I do. Yeah.
And forgive me real quick, man. I'm trying to find this so I can stream this to my own page. That's
Oh,
why I'm
okay.
looking downward as you're giving the intro. I apologize. I know
It's
that's
we're streaming on my
rude.
Facebook, on the Roofr Facebook, and also on the Roofr YouTube channel.
Okay, I think that's now going live to my Facebook page. So
Nice.
thank you, Matt. I appreciate you
Beautiful.
having me on today.
Yeah, it's great. We were just chatting a little bit offline about being Canadian, and you'll notice what I would say about being Canadian and my lackluster love of Tim Hortons. Chuck almost had a heart attack when I said I don't drink Tim Hortons coffee.
You did come back with a very amazing reason why you don't drink Tim Hortons coffee. So I came to discover it's got nothing to do with the actual product. It's got nothing to do with the restaurant.
That's right.
It was a very noble cause. So
Smoking
Tim Hortons still gets 2 thumbs up for me. And I'm actually enjoying some Tim Hortons today in my Roofr coffee mug.
Nice. Represent.
And I'm wearing my Roofr hat, as my podcast, Keeping It Rio, is also proudly sponsored by Roofr. So thank you guys for that.
So happy 4th of July, Chuck.
Absolutely, man. I am very happy to be here with you today. As you can see, I've got the patriotism flowing in the background. And I was just saying, what better way to celebrate the birth date of America than to have a chat with my favorite Canadian? So here we go.
This would have been unprecedented back in 1776 for, a member of the British Commonwealth to be sitting with a turncoat.
Exactly. And here we are. We're
a rebel.
Many years later, we're friends, and it's all good. It's copacetic.
Here's the thing, Chuck. I don't know if I said this on your podcast, but my grandparents, my mother's side of the family, were Pennsylvania Dutch, from the Lancaster, Pennsylvania area. And during the American the American what do you call it? Brain fart.
You, sir, are smarter than I am. The
American Revolution. Sorry,
okay.
Something caught my eye.
I was going to say the American Revolution. That's cool. I feel
I got distracted.
I can hang with that.
During the American Revolution, my ancestors fled into Canada to be loyal to the British Empire. They were Empire loyalists, so they said, "You know what? We want to stay loyal to the British Empire. We're going to come into Canada." And so my American ancestors left in 1776, but I still have I love the Lancaster, Pennsylvania area. That's my roots are there. It's fantastic land. And if I could buy property and move my family back there, I would, because you guys got a little bit more freedom south of the border than we do up here.
Well, for
just
now,
a little bit.
And I will say this: America will always welcome you, Matt. You're always going to be considered as, this is your second home. I've hung out with you in many American cities all over the country, and hopefully every single time it's been very welcoming. And hopefully, that you, sir, are always welcome here in the United States of America. Unless, of course, like your passport fails or something, then
how many states? How many states have you been to yourself? How many have you visited?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you, I've been to 38 out of the 50 states. I've still got a good portion I've got 12 to go, which is basically kind of like the Pacific Northwest and like in Montana, Wyoming, kind of over in that region. But I've kind of hit everything over here. I've traveled quite a bit in my 46 years on this planet. And when I say I've been in those states, I will say this, okay? Like Minnesota, I've been in the airport in Minneapolis, but that does count because I touched down in Minnesota. So a couple of them may be a little bit skewed. Colorado, I went to this place where there was like a 4-way intersection and you could just like kind of hopscotch into all 4 states right there. I think it's like Oklahoma, Colorado. I don't know the United States that well, but I was there. And so I've been in 38 of them. I've lived in multiple states. I've never been to Alaska. I want to go to Alaska.
Yeah, I actually do too. There's a train that goes across Canada, and you can rent like a hotel room on a train car, and the whole wall is a giant window. So when you're laying in bed, you're just looking out the train window, and you can go straight across Canada up into the Yukon, and then fly home or whatever. But that's on my bucket list of things to do.
That sounds like it'd be
I mean,
pretty fun.
I've never been to all the provinces. Like I've never been to British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and I don't even know how many provinces there are in Canada. 7, 8. And I've only been to maybe
Anybody
3
that's
of them.
watching this is going to be like in the roofing industry. So yeah, like 7 or 8, whatever. Like,
Yeah,
it's
that's
good.
right. Yeah,
Nobody's
yeah,
going to
that's right.
correct you.
Yeah,
I
but
didn't
I
even know
mean,
how many states we had.
you know that there are more people in California than there are in Canada?
I do believe that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I
There's
feel like there are more
45
people in
million.
California than there are anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a different place.
Yeah, that's the place to be, though, right? That's the
I'm partial to Texas. I like it over here.
Yeah. What
A little
draws you to
hot,
Texas?
but other than that, it's pretty cool.
What draws you to Texas the most out of all the states in the USA?
Well, I'll tell you what, man, it's a strange story. I ended up in Texas completely on accident, and I had never in my wildest dreams imagined that I would ever live in Texas. I've now been here for going on 12 and a half, almost 13 years. And really what happened was I was living in North Carolina, and I just one day had a bad day at my work. I used to be a manager of a roofing supply company there in Charlotte, and I just didn't like it anymore. So I went in and I kind of quit my job, which was maybe not the most well-advised thing I've ever done, but I did it.
Mhm.
And I had nothing to back up, no plans. I had moved to Charlotte a few years earlier. I didn't know anybody there. It was a whole ordeal. And I ended up getting in my car and just going for a drive. And I ended up in Texas, right?
Mhm.
And I ended up working for a roofing company over in College Station, Texas, which again, I had never dreamt of being in Texas. I'd visited a
Man,
few times, but I don't
that's
think there's
hot.
any place I'd rather be now
How could
than
I as a Canadian, all right, I could not imagine being on a roof. And you're right in San Antonio, are you not? And that's
yes.
hot. So like,
San Antonio, I believe, is like the epicenter of like everything. It's the hottest place on earth, I
yeah,
believe.
I wouldn't imagine being. If you put me on a roof, you're gonna smell bacon and maple syrup. Like I'm literally gonna fry. Like after
Well,
my
the beauty
Canadian
of
flesh
me
wouldn't.
is, number one, I do not install roofs. I'm too old for that. And
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not coordinated enough. I've got away with words, but not with hammers. So it's like,
Mhm.
I understand where my position is in this industry. I'll stay in my lane. I don't get on roofs that are dangerous at this point in my life and my age because it's like, I made it 26 years in the industry and I haven't had any major injuries
Yeah,
other than my 12-year career as a roof loader where my elbows hurt, my shoulders hurt, my back hurts, but I've
yeah,
never fallen off a roof. I've come close. And I've had a ladder break on me one time and I fell off that, but I've been pretty lucky. And I figure at this stage of my career, there's not going to be one specific job that I need so bad that I'm going to go up and risk my life by climbing on a 12-12 or a 16-12 or something. And if that's the requirement to earn that job, then I'm probably not going to earn the job because
yeah,
not really feeling that anymore. I
yeah,
enjoy what
no,
we're doing. I have a good time, but it is super hot down here. And I always tell my guys, take breaks every 15, 20 minutes, police yourselves. I stop by constantly with ice and water and,
yeah, yeah.
100 degrees on the ground.
Did they shut down during the hottest time of day and then go back in the evening?
Yeah, we shut my guys down. Now, my crew's down here in San Antonio. It's kind of cool because it gets light early now. My guys can get started, and most people in neighborhoods are cool with you getting started around 6:30 in the morning, even
Mhm.
though technically you're not supposed to. I get that. People are cool because they understand, it's going to get hot. My guys will go from about 6:30 till maybe like 1, and then they'll take a break for lunch. And I tell people from 1 o'clock till 4, 3:30, 4 o'clock, that's peak heat, that's peak sun. The
Yeah,
only thing really that can happen at that point is they can do some damage to the roof. They can get complacent. They can, get weary. And I tell my homeowners that very specifically. When you come home, don't freak out if my guys are laying underneath a tree. Don't
yeah,
freak out if they're taking an extended lunch. This is not a 9 to 5 job. It's not and I did have one homeowner one time complain about it. And I offered her the opportunity of a lifetime to join my roofing crew that day and climb up on the ladder. Here's some hammers, here's some nails, here's some bundles. It's a 10-12 pitch, it's direct sunlight, and it's in Texas. Have at it. And if you don't
I've
knock
had
these
it.
out, you're lazy, right? So
Yeah.
most people understand. I think if you have any common sense whatsoever, which there's always going to be a few homeowners here or there that don't, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So you're in roofing now. Now, what did you want to be when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up? What was your
Well,
dream job?
it's weird. I had two things that I wanted to do when I was growing up. Number one, my parents had they had their own business.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to kind of be exposed to that kind of environment of how hard you have to work when you have your own business and all the bad things that go into it that people don't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to be the guy that was like making deals. I wanted to be a sales type person of some sort. And I never
Mm-hmm.
would have figured roofing. And there was nobody, my uncle had a roofing company, but I was never closely affiliated or tied
Did
to
you
that.
have like a hero or somebody that you idolized as a kid that you looked up to that was in sales, like in a TV show? Like I'm thinking like Risky
Well,
Business or something, those.
it's a guy now who's extremely polarizing. And if I say it, people look at you in a stranger kind of way, but it was Donald Trump, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I read Donald Trump's book when I was in like third grade. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I kid you not, Matt, when I read that book, I remembered a lot of things that I got from it because I was enamored with that whole character, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be the guy that was making deals, that was like moving big things and making stuff happen. I wanted to drive a dump truck
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to have a radio show. So all these things, right? None of which I ended up doing, but indirectly, I ended up doing sales. I sell to this day. I drove a conveyor belt truck for 12 years, so I fulfilled that childhood fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And the podcast is about the closest thing to a radio show that you'll ever get. But
Yeah.
I think indirectly, I kind of lived out those childhood dreams in kind of a weird way. But yeah, that was my guy that I looked up to when I was young.
So
And
did you watch the show Family Ties? Did you like Alex P. Keaton, Michael J. Fox's
yeah,
character?
absolutely. I
Yeah.
grew up. I grew up in the same
Yeah.
area that you did. So of course,
That's right.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm 47 this year. Yeah.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. Michael J. Fox is another Canadian.
I like Michael J. Fox. He's
Yeah.
funny. He was dealt kind of a rough hand in life, but he brought a lot of joy to a lot of people and still does.
Mhm.
And I think that it's good that people can sometimes make light of their situations. And Michael J. Fox was one. I remember on, I don't know if you're familiar with the show Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I've heard of it. Is that Larry David?
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the funniest TV show that's ever been made, ever.
Yeah.
In the history of time, this is the funniest thing ever. And there was an episode where Michael J. Fox was Larry's neighbor and he lived above him and he was wanting to irritate him. So he's got these work boots on and he's moving around up on the thing. And every time Larry would get mad, he'd say, well, man, it's I can't control it. I have Parkinson's. I can't control it. And he was doing it on purpose, but it was kind of good that
I think I did see that episode.
Some good stuff. Anyway, that wasn't what the topic was about, but yes, I wanted to do these things when I was growing up, and this is what I wanted to do when I was growing up, basically.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was going to be roofing, but I'm very thankful that roofing came into my life.
And how did that happen? How did you get into roofing?
Again, this is another one of those stories where I was working at a drywall company and I was running the crane truck, the knuckle booms that delivers sheetrock into commercial buildings, into people's homes. I would do deliveries into basements and things like that. Mm-hmm. The Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio, I delivered a ton of sheetrock to that. And that, my friend, is the only job that I've ever had that is worse than roofing as far as being physically demanding.
Yeah.
And I was the guy that was, I ran the crane for a little bit, but I would also go into the buildings and I would actually do the physical labor of moving the boards off of the crane and moving them across the buildings and all that. And I got a hernia. Mm-hmm. And it was preventable, but the guy I was working with, didn't want to prevent it. So I got a hernia and I had to go through surgery. And while I'm doing that, I got to work at the front counter of this, which got me a little bit of taste of that salesmanship.
Mhm.
And as soon as I got in there, it was like the coolest thing ever. And within a couple days, I had regular customers that had been buying from this company for years that were calling directly asking for me.
Yeah.
And, nobody even knew who I was. I was just a driver, but I was doing all that. And it caught me and I enjoyed that. So I was having a bad day one day. I went back out on the road and I was delivering drywall and I was just in a really foul mood. I'm driving home and off to the right-hand side, there was this roofing supply company called P&W Roofing Supply based
Mhm.
over in Columbus, Ohio. And actually my business partner, Jason Shumway, who was the roofer of the month 2 months ago, he
Yeah.
is one of the owners of that company.
Oh, wow.
And I pulled in, I applied for the job of truck driver, and I ended up staying with that company for 15 years. I did truck driving. I got to go open a branch in Charlotte and kind of manage that for a couple years. And
Mhm.
all of that happened just because I had a bad Friday. My boss at the drywall place did something to make me mad. I have no recollection of what it was, but I know that had to be the case.
Yeah.
And that Monday, I started in the roofing industry, and I think we're coming up on 26 years here at the end of this month. So that's
Wow.
one of those things. I didn't see that coming, and I didn't plan on it, but I'm thankful that I turned in that day, and I'm thankful that this industry gave me the life that it has. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, apart from roofer, um, what's your how do you find tech adoption in your role? Like, you've been in the industry so long, you probably started doing estimates on like carbon paper. You had the carbon copy, and you give one to the customer, give one to yourself. Doing
Oh yeah.
estimates and stuff like that. Um, how far has technology come for you? Like, how good has it been for your business?
It's insane, okay? Because I've always kind of paid attention to what's going on in the industry. Even when I was just a sales rep, I was trying to stay on the front edge of everything that was coming in. Like before Roofer even existed, I was working with
Hmm.
iRoofing and Snapchat or Snap, Roof Snap, and
Hmm.
all that stuff. And I brought drones in. I think 8 years ago, I bought my first drone, and I was doing drone videos and stuff like that way back then because I realized, again, it takes an hour, sometimes more, to get on a nice cut up roof, to put
Yeah.
yourself in jeopardy, to endanger your life just so you can put together a proposal to potentially earn business. Now, I've seen people fall off roofs before and then not get the job. And the,
Yeah.
the question I always ask is, okay, that sucked. Why
Yeah.
would you do that? And I couldn't come with a reasonable answer. So I said, okay, if I don't want to get on a roof, I'm going to find a way to do something other than getting up there and measuring it by hand. And
Hmm.
when I first started doing it, I was working for a roofing company, and it was first kind of met with a little bit of that's not us. We do things this way. But over the course of time, they understood and saw what the value of it was. They saw how quickly I was getting things turned around. The accuracy was not an issue, and started kind of moving that way. And that was probably, 7, 8 years ago, like I said, and it's
Yeah. Yeah.
continued to evolve to where now with my roofing company, I've got everything that Roofr offers, the CRM. I've
Yeah.
got every option available because of the sponsorship with the podcast.
Hmm.
And, the fact is I started with Roofr when I first got here 5.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And Roofr was just about brand new at that time. I
Yeah.
had never even heard of it. And I just kind of started putting out posts like I do. And Richie Nelson, the CEO of Roofr, reached out to me one day and was like, "Hey man, I appreciate your support." And,
Yeah.
from there has developed what I think has been really one of the coolest relationships that I can say I've developed in the industry. And just being able to watch this company grow from 8 years ago, just being a couple of guys that were actual roofers, to now, I mean, I run the entire CRM. I send out proposals in just a matter of moments. I
Hmm.
collect payments. I do everything off of this thing. And it's like, man, kudos to you guys. You've got a great team. You've got Rad Matford all the way over there, the world
That's me.
champion estimator, measurement drawer.
DIY.
And
DIY.
yeah, why would you not? If the tools are here, I can always understand the old school guys that are just kind of hesitant because they just don't trust it. But
Yeah.
you're gonna get run over, man. I'm
But the
sorry.
the thing is, because then you got the guys that were like, back in the day, you had the guys that were hatchet. We called them hand bangers. They would bang by hand, right?
Absolutely.
And they would never touch a nail gun. And then it's like, just try the nail gun. And once they got a nail gun in their hand, they got the setting right, they pop, pop, pop. They never went back to a hatchet. You know,
Exactly.
it's the same thing. You just once you try the technology and you get used to it and get comfortable with it, it becomes simple. I personally, I've just been a nerd my whole life. You know, I started writing C++ and learning code back in the early 90s. I remember our first computers were in 8th grade, which would be 1989 is when I started. We had the old Commodore 64s and stuff, and I started learning how to write code back then. And I never did anything with it. You know, it was just a hobby, but here I am. I got into roofing, and now I'm doing computer. I'm a roofing nerd. This is not what I dreamed of, but it's my dream now.
Yeah, and it's the coolest thing ever, right? Like none of us would have ever imagined that something like this would even be possible.
Yeah, exactly.
And now that it's here, of course I'm going to adopt everything I can to
Yeah.
make my time, to compress my time, to make things quicker,
Oh,
easier, more
yeah.
effective. The
100%.
automations that you've got available now,
Man,
my
it's like,
homeowners know, boom, boom, boom. This is going to be
yeah,
here. Materials are coming tomorrow. Make sure you've got your driveway clear. Make sure you take things off the wall. Make sure you do this. Here's
yeah.
your invoice. You can pay it right now. Boom.
Oh,
Thank
we
you.
got a
Here's
lot
your
more
warranty.
coming too. A
I
lot more coming. But
know.
it's like when I was a kid, you remember the movie Dick Tracy with Warren Beatty? Love that
Absolutely.
movie as a kid. And he had all the gadgets and the talking watch and stuff. And like we're living in that age when we have all these. Yeah, exactly.
Who would have ever thought, right?
Yeah, exactly. So hey, you're freaking Dick Tracy, man. Chuck Tracy. That's what I'm gonna call you from now on.
I like to think of myself more as Inspector Gadget, but
Inspector
yes.
Gadget. You got the little
Yeah.
cat helicopter.
Got the spoons coming out of my hands and everything, and the oil
Yeah.
slicks on my roller skates.
That's great. So what made you come up with the idea for the Keeping It Real podcast?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And I will say this past week, actually this past Monday, the 1st, was the 3-year anniversary / birthday of Keeping It Rio.
Oh.
And what Keeping It Rio started off as was a weekly program, and it was myself and it. I love the sound effects. I was on Marquise Mitchell's podcast earlier, and I was doing the whole wah wah wah.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
telling jokes, and I think I kind of messed with his karma a little bit there. But
Yeah.
so 3 years ago, my company Riop Blanco at that point was partnered up with ASAP Roofing over in East Texas, and that partnership also came in alliance with K Socialized Media, which was the social media company that was also founded from the ownership of that organization.
Okay.
We would do things as a group because at one point there were 15 different locations nationwide, and we had a really solid big team, and we could kind of compete with each other. And so basically 3 years ago, the game plan came up to where the two companies were going to do a live stream once a week, and this was a social media challenge, and we were going to go on there, and we were just going to basically go on, acknowledge people that have done something well for the company that week, or here's something that we're going to be doing next week. Keep an eye out for this. We're going to be giving away gas cards or whatever. And it was basically myself and those guys. And I think after about the first or second week of doing that, we kind of looked at it and we're like, you know what? We have a good chemistry. We just need to kind of maybe instead of making it what it is, we need to kind of make it our own a little bit.
Yeah.
And we came up with the name Keeping It Rio because of Riop Blanco. And basically, we went for, I think, about 90 episodes. It was myself and a couple of my guys that were office managers for the other locations. And we would talk about anything from gas station hot dogs to, I did one episode at I went down a water slide one time. I was in a game room or a video game mansion in Orlando. We've had guests from all over the world, but it started off as that. And again, I kind of had thought about doing it before. And I met Brad Lee, and I don't know if you're familiar with Brad Lee or not, but he's an entrepreneur. He does a lot of speaking at events and things like that.
Okay.
And I met him just very shortly before that. And it was very random because he's a pretty popular guy. And I just happened to kind of walk down a hallway and Brad Lee is there. And I just said, hey, man, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And we started talking for a minute. And he asked me, do you have a podcast? And I said, no, I don't, but I'm planning on doing one. And it's like, well, the inspirational speech was basically like, everybody says that you're not really going to do it, whatever. Nobody knows you. And that's what it is. So I was inspired. I did that. And I told myself in that moment, I'm going to meet Brad Lee again one day. And I'm going to tell him that story about how he kind of also helped push me to get going, because he really inspired me to not be what I was about to be, which was, halfway in.
Yeah.
And this past September, I was in Florida. I was with Lee Haight in his conference, Blue Collar American Dream. Brad Lee was the featured keynote speaker on the final day. I got to go up to Brad Lee and talk to him personally and tell him that story. So it was kind of a thing that a few people had kind of helped motivate me to get going with. But like I said, man, Howard Stern was my hero as a teenager.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to do something where I'm sitting at a desk in a dark room and I'm chatting with people about whatever. And
Mhm.
that's really
And
what my
it's
inspiration was.
perfectly legal.
Yeah, right. And I wouldn't have done it had it not been for the push that I got there. My co-hosts that I had for the first couple of years were awesome. We had a great camaraderie. Everybody had a great time doing it. And
Yeah.
then I figured about maybe, I don't know, 65, 70 episodes ago, I figured, you know what? I want to continue to do it. I gave those guys the option, and neither one was like really, like gung ho like I was.
Yeah.
And I knew that. So I said, hey, if you guys don't want to do it anymore, I'll just continue moving forward. I'll just turn it into an interview show. And since then, I've had some of the biggest stars, not just in our industry, but I've had 16 best-selling authors. I've had people from all over the world. This week's guest was a retired birthday clown.
Oh, wow.
I've got
That's
an
cool.
insurance agent coming on tomorrow. I've
Yep.
had, $200 million company owners, and I've had people that just started their business last week, and pretty much everything in between: professional wrestlers, chefs.
Yeah.
There's really not any kind of, off territory here.
It's a chat. It's a chat show. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
We're
not a
talking.
roofing program. I do get
Yeah.
a lot of roofing people because obviously that's my background, but
Yeah.
it's not a roofing show. It's more, I really just like to talk to people. And a lot of the guests
Yeah.
I get, Matt, it'll be like, I'll do a Facebook group post and it'll say, hey, looking for interesting guests. Random people will reach out to me and I'll schedule them. And we literally will meet 1 or 2 minutes before we record the episode. So we literally don't know each other at all. And to me, I think that makes it way more authentic. And I think
It does.
it's a lot cooler to me because you really don't know. And you've
Yeah.
got to really kind of, hope for the best. I've only had 2 that I didn't play, but every other one that I've done, it turns out pretty well for the most part. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. You're
Yeah, it is.
you're going to be doing podcasting for the next several years, just like I am. And
Yeah.
you'll see, it's just really a cool hobby. I enjoy it. Everything's paid for. The expense is very minimal to do what we do. And
Yeah.
I'm
But
looking for
it is fun.
sponsors right now. Yeah.
Even creating this little banner thing that I have go running across the
Awesome.
bottom, like, yeah, and then putting in, I don't know what the music, like there's little music things that you can play in the background. I've never played background music, but
I will say this. Earlier today, I was on Marquise's podcast and I viciously abused the background music. It's not as entertaining as you would think. And after a few seconds, it can get downright annoying.
yeah,
One of those host features that it's like,
yeah, I know. I've never played it because I'm too scared to. I don't want it to. I can't tell how loud it is either. You know what I mean? For people listening at home, but the applause is nice. But you're right. This is absolutely fun. I'm like a little kid here playing a video game.
This is just a grown-up version of that, and we get to talk to people. This podcast has helped me with roofing business. It's helped me with networking. It helps me with training. I send copies of episodes to people that want to get into the industry so that they can see this is a person that got into it, and this is the struggle they went through, and this is how they ended up making it to the other end. Is that something that sounds good to you, or is that something you feel like you're willing to do?
Yeah.
And, that is content that I just created randomly, and I can utilize it to that. I've sold roofs off of reels before. I've sold roofs off of reels of magicians melting spoons.
Yeah, but even the personal development, like I have a hard time paying attention. I hate using the term ADHD, but I might say I have a little bit of that. But
thing.
This forces you to listen and interact with people, and it helps you build those skills, those listening skills and those speaking skills. And where I would otherwise be shy in situations, I'm finding that I'm more comfortable in certain situations. So podcasting is really great for personal development as well as professional
Absolutely.
development.
I
Well,
listen to some of my episodes. It's weird. I tell you that I send them out. I sent out a episode the other day. It was, I think, episode 35.
yeah.
And I'm at 175 now. So it's been a while ago. And it was Ben
Yep.
Menchaca. And I don't know if
Mhm.
you knew Ben or if you ever got to meet Ben, but
Yeah.
super guy. He left us way too early. He
Yeah.
did this episode and I sent it to the young man that wanted to get into the industry. And I went back and watched it just because,
Yeah.
I hadn't watched it in 2 years and it was Ben. And for that hour, this guy's back and he's telling jokes and we're having fun and we're cutting
Yeah.
up and it's like he's here. And the only thing I could recognize on this, Matt, was my goodness, how terrible am I as an interviewer on episode 35 as compared to episode 175?
Oh yeah.
And the evolution is amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was that bad, but I always adopted the thought process of, okay, I'm not a professional. I'm a roofer. I use words
Yeah.
incorrectly. I make up things that don't make sense.
Mhm.
Sometimes I come up with complete bullshit stories just to make people laugh,
Yeah.
and they can be completely ridiculous, but that's just who I am. I don't want to try to shine myself up or polish myself. I want to be
Right.
me.
Yeah.
And if you don't like my podcast, don't watch it. I could
Yeah,
care less.
You get distracted by something off camera and you forget the word revolution. You know what I mean?
It happens.
But
Happens all the time.
There's something to say, like when we were off camera, we were just, chatting away. As soon as that thing says live, for some reason, you get those butterflies in your tummy. Like it's like, oh, now people are watching. You know what I mean?
And we're live, right? Like people are watching us as
Yeah,
we
this is
speak
live.
right now.
This isn't recorded. So
Happy 4th of July, America.
yeah. So it is nerve-wracking. It is nerve-wracking. We have a comment.
Oh, we do. We have a all, which I'm guessing is probably directed towards you. Maybe towards me. I don't know. That'd be, I guess, up for interpretation either way.
Yeah. Well, you're cuter than I am.
Oh, again, interpretation.
So speaking of interpretation, you talked about the Blue Collar American Dream conference. Now, how would you define? This is a 4th of July question. How do you define the American dream? What does that mean to you?
It has evolved over the course of the last few years for me. And 5 years ago, if you'd have asked me that, I would have had a completely different answer than I have today. A lot of things change in life as you continue to grow and you go through certain things. You realize some things are not as important as you thought they were. Some things are more important than you thought they were. For me right now, at this point in my life, I have a very, I'm very adamant about my position that I want to be stress-free. Now, anybody that knows me knows I am anything but stress-free. I am high strung. I'm all over. I've been drinking coffee all day.
Yeah.
And I can really get myself wound up when I need to. And a lot of times when I don't need to. And part of this deal that I've got going right now is I just want to be stress-free. I want to feel happy. Whatever happiness is, I haven't quite found it yet, but I know that it's got something to do with not being stressed out all the time. Yeah. And so success for me right now, I think, would be if you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I am doing the very best that I possibly can. And am I perfect? No. Am I ever going to be perfect? No. Am I going to accomplish the things that I set out to accomplish? Absolutely. Why? Because I am the person in charge of that. Yeah. Is it money? I don't know. At one point in my life, I thought so. Is it sweet cars and stuff like that? I'll be honest. I drive a regular SUV, and if you offered me a Lamborghini, I'd probably just be like, what would I do?
I'd take the Lambo. That's.
I don't know what I'd do with it. It's not.
It'd be another toy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not something that motivates me. So right now, for me, success is just basically looking in the mirror and saying, hey, I'm giving it my best. I'm doing the best I can. I'm surviving in a world that is every single day seems to be getting a little bit more difficult to survive.
Yeah, the idea of the American dream, it seems it's getting difficult to achieve or to attain.
Right. So you
more
have
and
to
more.
pivot off of a financial goal because it's like, oh, dude, there's no money left. So
Yeah,
what do we
exactly.
do? I want to be happy. I want to travel. I want to do things that I enjoy. So my two things that I set out to improve upon and to work more with was I took up a hobby of playing golf,
Nice.
which I am horrible, but it's fun. And I've
Yeah.
got to go golfing with some pretty important people already in just my brief career.
Mhm.
I went to an Atlas event the other day in Houston, and I realized all of the key people at Atlas I have played golf with separately at some point in the last 3 years. So
Oh, wow. Yep.
that's a cool little thing. And
Mhm.
the podcast, I really enjoy doing the podcast. I
Yeah.
want to find my goal for the rest of this year is to find somebody, and I'm putting this out on your podcast right now, Matt, because I know you're popular. I want somebody that wants to have a different type of experience at an event like RoofCon or IRE,
Mhm.
preferably IRE because it's here in San Antonio. And I'd like to do my podcast at an event sometime in the next year. I think
Mhm.
that's cool when I go to RoofCon and I can be on like Eric Obrem's podcast, or you can be on TC Backer. And I
Yeah.
want to I want to do that. I've been saying that for 3 years. And I would like to find somebody that would like to do that, that would partner up with me and say, hey, swing by our booth and check out the Keeping It Rio podcast, look at whatever we got going on. So that's something I'm working on right now as well.
Yeah.
Stress free. But like I say, man, the American dream, it's continually shifting. I think right now, if you can just say, hey, I'm a good person, I'm doing the best I can, I didn't kill anybody today, you're doing all right,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
sad but true.
Yeah, it is. And like I know the American dream, the ideal American dream growing up as a Canadian was like the little house on the street with the white picket fence and the dog in the yard, and that was the whole leave it to beaver mentality. That's the way, from an outsider looking in, that's what I would envision the American dream experience to be. But yeah, it's getting harder and harder to achieve.
It is. And you know what? It was that when I was growing up in the 80s, it was like that. In the 90s, it
Yeah.
was like that.
Yeah.
And you hate to say that because then you start to realize, yeah, I'm getting old.
Back in my day.
But it's true. I'm at the gym
It
today and I was like, man, I can't believe these teenagers with their haircuts. And as soon as I said that, I was like, oh no, like
Yeah,
you're the dude that's bitching about haircuts now, Chuck.
yeah,
That's not
yeah,
good. But
yeah,
it's
I heard
true. It was
that.
a different dynamic in the 80s and 90s. I think about that all the time. When we were kids, I would literally go and we would get on our bicycle. And
Yeah.
if I could, there's statute of limitations on things now, and both of my parents are no longer with us. But it's like if my mom knew a fraction of the stuff that I did as a
Yeah.
kid, when she thought we were, at our friend's house or whatever, and we're smoking cigarettes at the age of 8 years old, building fires out in the woods and building
Yep.
dirt bikes out of tractors and
Yeah.
damn near getting
Yeah.
ourselves killed on a daily basis.
Exactly. Pellet
But
gun
it was
fights,
fun.
BB
Yeah,
gun wars. Yeah.
and we talked about this the other day. Someone was like, when we grew up, this is how much the world has changed. Now
Yeah.
people wear helmets when they ride their bicycles.
I
Kids
know.
wear
We used to
helmets.
ride in the back of the pickup truck into town, and my
Oh,
dad would
dude,
go
standing
go
up,
to the beer.
surfing. Yeah, you
Yeah,
hit a
we had
pothole, you're going
we have the
fine, but
beer store. We have the beer store here, right? That we don't You can't buy it at the supermarket like you can down there. So we'd go in the pickup truck to the beer store. My dad would grab a 6-pack and crack a beer and drive home.
yeah, be drinking it on the way home with kids in
Yeah,
the back.
exactly.
And
We'd be
look,
bouncing in the
we're
back.
still here. Nothing,
Yeah.
I think I'm fairly normal. I've taken a few shots to the head, maybe some unnecessary bodily harm that I imposed on myself over the years, but it was
That's
a
funny
heck
though,
of a
because
lot
like
more fun than being a kid today, probably.
our generation, from my observation, it seems to be the most chill. You got the millennials, you got the boomers, and we're Gen X. We're a very small group of people who were born between like 1976 and 1984 or something like that. It's a really small window. And our generation just seems to be like chill, just relax.
Yeah, I think we realize the old people aren't going to let us have control. And by the time they're done, the younger people are going to try to seize control. So we're just kind of along for the ride.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's always been my mentality. And I think you're right about that. Like people in our age group, I think we're the coolest. I definitely
Yeah.
do. I think we're cooler than old people and younger people.
Because we
And
can use computers like young people, like we can use tech like young people, but we can talk about like I remember we have the Royal Canadian Legion up here, right? And it's like a veteran affairs place.
Yeah, like a
And you go there.
VFW.
Yeah, exactly. So I would go there and hang out with the veterans and hear stories of World War II from people who are actually fighting. And like this is back in the 90s and stuff. I would hear about Farley Mowat, who is a famous author. He was a Canadian war hero as well. And I would hear stories from guys who were actually in his platoon fighting with him over in World War II from people who were there. So you carry that from our generation, these stories from the people who lived through World War II, and we have that respect for that, but we can also pick up our iPhone and reprogram it and
we can
like
order
integrations and
we can order a Roofr report right now, and we can have
exactly.
it within 2 hours guaranteed, and everything will be great.
Exactly.
And it's amazing how that works. And I think about that a lot. It's like, you know what? When history defines itself, billions of years after we're all gone, this is going to be a pretty cool time, I think, to be in. I think the generation that we got is like the coolest one. And I'm excited because we got to see all the old school stuff. We got to we were the first ones with video games.
Yeah. We were
Y'all
the
got
first
these
ones
video
with
games now, but
old televisions.
Remote controls. I remember back in the day, our cable box had a long cord on it, right?
Yeah.
And this cord was like 40 feet long, and our couch would be on one side of the room, and you'd have to, people would trip on the thing, and you rip the TV out of the wall. It is a huge disaster.
We had one of those TV antennas with the rotor, and you turn the rotor, and if the rotor broke, you had to climb up the tower and turn it by hand. And is a picture in yet?
And that's like a daily activity. Yeah,
and I was like 8. I was climbing 40 feet in the air when I was 8 to adjust the television antenna.
Your future was predetermined, whether you realize it or not. It was at this time that Matt realized climbing on roofs was a lifelong activity.
Hey, man, I've been climbing and jumping off roofs since I could walk. And I wasn't a roofer. I was just dangerous.
Oh, yeah. I got my Trampoline Wrestling Federation banned because I did a leg drop off the top of my roof onto the trampoline. And
the best
some injuries occurred that day.
We get some pretty deep snow drifts here, and they drift up against the side of a house. You can climb up on the roof and then jump off the roof into the snow drift and just thunk, and it's up over your head, and then you got to swim out of the snow drift. It's pretty fun.
Oh yes, we had those in Ohio, so I'm not completely unaware of the giant snow drifts. We used to enjoy them quite a bit.
Yeah. So what do you have planned for the rest of your 4th of July?
Well, this was my highlight of the day, quite frankly. I got up this morning. I did my daily gym exercise. I was on a podcast earlier with Marquise, which this actually is the first time I've been a guest on multiple podcasts, let alone in the same day. I haven't been a guest on a podcast in a long time. So I enjoy being on this end of the questioning. And I think I'm probably, I like to do an evening walk. I got a little park over here, and I do a little 4 miles every evening just to stay in shape. Probably going to go do that after we get done with our podcast. And then I have a balcony here. I'm on the 3rd floor. I'll probably just look outside and see about 8,000 different fireworks displays.
Beautiful.
And that's pretty much what I've got. I'm actually recording a podcast at 6 a.m. tomorrow. So nothing crazy.
Who do you have on tomorrow?
Tomorrow, I'm going to have a local San Antonio insurance broker, Jeremy Mock, and Jeremy is going to be talking about some of the things that homeowners need to look at with their policies as they're changing, some of the trends that the insurance industry is starting to unveil to us as far as percentage deductibles, different types of coverages, exclusions, things like that. Just things that we can help our homeowners with. And I'm going to cut those up, put them into reels, put them on my company page. Utilize the podcast for what it's there for, which is to help people, right?
Yeah, that's great. Where can people stream your podcast?
Well, I do Keeping It Real. I do it every Thursday, and I am also doing it on Tuesdays now, and mostly more on Tuesdays now than Thursdays. But I kind of give myself a little bit of a either or with that. And usually I do them at 7 p.m. Central. I've come to find out that that's a pretty good start time. People are at home. They're done eating dinner. They're just chilling on the couch, and they tune in to watch Keeping It Rio. I've got a Facebook page. I've got a YouTube channel for Keeping It Rio.
Yeah.
I play it on LinkedIn. I play it on my personal Facebook page. So You're aware. I'm pretty
sharing
much all over social media. I'm not shy.
I'm sharing your Facebook page in the comments here.
Nice. I'm always looking forward to having more friends. I just crossed over 6,400 this morning. So
Wow,
a glorious day in America it has been.
that's great. So is this do you have any traditions that you celebrate on the 4th of July? Like, is there a tradition that you do year over year?
Not really anymore because I moved away. When I lived in Ohio, we had all kinds of traditions. You know, there was this giant fireworks thing called Red, White, and Boom. And you would go down there and it would be like the night before, probably tonight, I would guess, down there now. And it would be, you know, the big extravaganza of all fireworks displays in the Midwest. And that was fun. But when I moved to North Carolina, I didn't really have any friends there. So I kind of stopped doing anything on the 4th. I moved to Texas. And when I was in College Station, we did have the company I worked for would do fireworks every 4th of July. I'd go out there. Since I've been here in San Antonio, not really. And especially with it being a Thursday, like I said, I've got a couple of roofing appointments tomorrow. I've got a podcast at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of treating it like a Thursday. Yeah. It feels like a Saturday to me. It has all day.
So up here in Canada, we often, if Canada Day is on like a Wednesday or Thursday, we'll just take the Monday off before. That way
and I don't know how that works here in America. I'm not sure if tomorrow there's going to be nobody working, or do we go back as if, you know, it was a one-day thing? I don't know.
There's going to be a lot of people calling in sick tomorrow.
I agree. And the cool thing is I've already set 2 roofing appointments for tomorrow. So to me, if you're not going to be going to work tomorrow and you live in San Antonio, call me up. I'll come check out your roof.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, Chuck, I want to thank you for coming on my show today, the Roofr Spotlight, and talking a little bit about everything. It's been great.
It's my pleasure. I love being on here, Matt, and I appreciate you. You're one of my favorite people in this industry. Any chance I get to hang out with you, I always enjoy. We have a great time, and I love your podcast. I love the way that you got everything set up, and I look forward to seeing it continue to grow, evolve, develop for the next several years. And thank you. Thank you for letting me come on today. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys, everybody at Roofr. Like I said, my Keeping It Real podcast and my roofing company benefit directly from Roofr, and I appreciate that very, very much.
Well, we appreciate you too, Chuck. Now go and celebrate some freedom.
Absolutely. America. Don't forget, everybody, Roofr. That's ROOFR.com.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Chuck.
God bless America. Yeah. Thank you, Matt.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for those who tuned in today with Chuck Allen. We talked a little bit about everything and a whole lot of nothing, but that's what we do here on the Roofr Spotlight. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode, so tune in and we'll see you there. Until then, Radford out.